Feel the vibes.
What's up, y'all? Welcome this week of the Romelite Show. Today I got a special guest. We got a lot of stuff that's going on. We got a lot of people going back and forth about the school district and what's going on. And it's just been mainly civilians outside looking in. So this week we have an invited guest who actually was a school teacher, correct?
Yes.
And now she's in the administration part of it. And welcome to the Romelite Show, Keisha.
Thank you.
Keisha Green Joyner is her name. So, everything good? You good?
Everything good.
Oh, that's okay. So first we're gonna jump right into it. I want to get your opinion on what happened in South Carolina in the classroom from a teacher's point of view and an administrator point of view.
So I'll start from the administrator's point of view. From an administrator's point of view, I felt like that teacher wasn't trained properly to handle classroom management, which is a huge issue for teachers, especially in urban settings. Classroom management is huge. And so I just didn't, after watching the video, didn't feel like the teacher was trained properly to handle that situation. And as a result, called the police, who then handled the situation and handled it improperly.
Oh, okay. So I know between each state, they have different rules and regulations. From California rules and regulations, what's the protocol for that type of situation, or is it one?
Well, I think it just depends on your school and your district. But having been in different districts around the Bay Area, we could call a school security officer to come in and talk with the student. We could call an assistant principal or the principal to come in and talk with the student. I would have never called the police officer over a cell phone. And it wasn't, the child wasn't on the phone and being belligerent or anything. The child, just said she didn't want to give him the cell phone. And so I would have never called the police. And I think that if I'm going to call the police, I have to be prepared for a different type of incident, but I would never call the police for that type of incident. That is the responsibility of the teacher, period.
Right. Okay, so if I'm correct, the teacher called the office, and the office called the police? Is that how it went?
I'm not sure. There's been so many different conflicting reports, but nevertheless, the police would be the last person to be called, and they would never be called over a cell phone incident.
Okay. So how do you feel about police officers being on school campus? Do they go through a different training to be able to work with the kids? Do you know of, or is it the same training from the police academy? It's just putting them in a police school setting?
Well, when I worked in one of the districts, we did have a city police officer located on our campus. And I do know that they, were regular police officers and had to leave campus to go handle things in the city, but were also trained to work with students. So I'm believing that they had extra training. Mm-hmm. And the district oversaw and worked in collaboration with the city police. So there had to be some type of training on how to de-escalate with kids versus de-escalating with, someone on the street. Mm-hmm. But high school is a great place, but can be a dangerous place for kids, especially large high schools. And I don't mean dangerous as in, walking around the city at night and, whatever, but there's so many kids versus adults. Mm-hmm. And, kids come from different backgrounds, different situations. So all types of things happen on high school campuses. So do I think a police officer is necessary? Yes. Especially in a large urban city. If we're talking about a small school, and when I say large, I mean 1,200 and above. That's pretty large. Something under that, not necessarily. But if you're going to have a police officer, there has to be rules that the teachers understand, the administration understands on how to work with that police officer. And again, the police officer is the last person you call. In fact, you don't call the police officer for a cell phone incident. Mm-hmm. Now, if cell phone got stolen, that's the school's responsibility or not. But it's not the responsibility of the police officer. Classroom management, teachers go through training on classroom management. And while it's probably not the best training, we encourage teachers and administrators provide extra support in classroom management when they can. But that's a huge issue for teachers is classroom management. And really it's about engagement. So if a child isn't engaged in class, they turn off towards the teacher or, they might be trying to hide something. But if a child is engaged in class, you're not going to have those types of situations.
Exactly. So I heard that also that young lady she's, I guess, living in a foster home. Do teachers, are they aware of those situations as well? Because that could play a role in their self-esteem, their attitude, how they treat themselves, how they treat others and all that. Do a teacher know about when a kid is in a foster home versus being in a home with one parent or two parents? Because all those different home environments play a key role in how you deal with a child. But it's like all these different elements are left off the table and we only deal with the action that happened right then and there, but everything has a build up to it. So do you guys know about that?
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And so as an administrator, I encourage all of my teachers to get to know their kids because education is really about relationship building. And so, not every teacher knows what every student is going through, but you have an opportunity to ask questions. Each child has a CUME folder that gives information. Sometimes, the school may not even be aware that the child lives in foster care. But if we are, then we try to alert the teacher and let them know, especially if they're in foster care and you have to talk to a parent. So you have to talk to the foster care provider. But sometimes, foster care providers look at the kids as their own and don't say, I'm a foster parent. If they live in a group home, that's something different. We are very aware that they live in a group home because when we have to call, you're calling a group home. So it just depends.
Because you haven't heard nothing from the parents? The group, whoever the guardians, whatever. You haven't heard? I haven't. I don't know. Have you heard anything from them?
There's been something in the news that said, the foster parent really doesn't want to speak out right now because she wants to protect the child who's also been through not just this incident, but the loss of her own mother.
Right.
So she's trying to really protect that child right now, and not, because foster youth are supposed to be protected kids in school. So, you don't want to blare out that this child is in foster care and blah, 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 blah. So she's, to me, doing the right thing by remaining quiet.
I agree. And also what you just said, that could play a direct role in that child's mindset, knowing that she just lost her parent. Anybody that lost a parent know how that actually feels. So didn't be treated that way, because as a kid you're trying to figure out what is my purpose in this world anyway. Then you lose a person that's supposed to guide you, so you lost, and then this happened to you. It's like you know what I'm saying?
That's
So
terrible.
So I just always wonder, like, when we see the news about schools, we never hear about, like I say, all the things that lead up to it. So just me hearing about that she just lost her mother made me look at the whole situation put a different spin. My perspective of it has grown even more just by getting that information. Well, right now we got to take a quick break and we'll come right back. Peace out. Romelite Show. See you in 2020, man. All right, welcome back. So, pick up our conversation where we left off at. I want to ask you, when a parent is not involved, when you was a teacher, you was a teacher, right?
Yeah.
For how many years you was a teacher?
6.
6 years. So when you have a parent that's not involved in the school, when a child's school activities, how do you deal with that? When you see the kid don't give a fuck, and the parent don't care, how do you reach them?
So every parent cares. And that, I've been trained and just in the business long enough to know that every parent cares, but people show their care in a different way. So the child who some teachers would say that parent doesn't care, you have to build a relationship and find out what's going on. Mm-hmm. So for many parents, they're working 2 or 3 jobs. Mm-hmm. They're single parent, whether it be a mother or a father. They might not have had their own great experience with school. Mm-hmm. And so they don't want to come to the school because, there's a fear of mm-hmm. the school. For some families, they are undocumented, so they're not coming to the school because there's a fear that mm-hmm. they come to the school, they're going to be taken away. Mm-hmm. So you really just have to get to know that child and see, what they're lacking. And unfortunately, teachers are not just teachers. Teachers are parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, therapists, everything. So we tend to stand in the gap for that kid. When I taught elementary, I spent a third of my paycheck on my classroom because I worked in a low income area, and my kids, most of their parents were single parents and working 2 or 3 jobs and couldn't supply everything that mm-hmm. the child needed. And so I would make sure that my kids had what they needed, because education is also about access. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that my kids have access to any and everything that, rich parents provide for their kids. And the access is really about experience. Right. So, my kids took them on BART. They hadn't been on BART before. Small things like that. So I get kind of annoyed when people say, or a teacher or anybody says, oh, that parent doesn't care. Well, get to know that parent and find out what that parent is struggling in and what they need. Every parent loves their kid and wants their kid to succeed and be successful. And every parent, when they have their kid, they want their kid to be the president. They want their kid to, go mm-hmm. really far. But not every parent is equipped to get them there. And we send our kids to school in hopes that they'll learn and that there'll be some supportive people there as well to get them as far as they can take them.
Now, as a coach, I would love to believe that every parent cares, but I have parents tell me, I want my kid to be the best, but they pull them out of practice for every given reason. Or they tell them, instead of tell them, we all see what they did wrong, but that's all they focus on. It's like we're the build up of what they did good. So how do you deal with those parents? And when they come up to the school and when they take the child side, ready to fight the teacher, and how do you deal with that as a teacher, as an administrator?
Well, again, that parent says that they want the best for their kid. Mm-hmm. So you have to believe that that's what they want. Mm-hmm. But for parents that, take the child side, that's fine. As a parent, you do want to take that child's side. You want to believe that your child is who they are, from the time you raise them and send them off to school until they come home, they're mm-hmm. the same child. And so, for me, I just talk to parents about the behaviors. And I don't make judgments about the kids, and you don't make judgments about the adults. Mm-hmm. You talk about the behavior. So your child is doing this. This is unacceptable here at school. Mm-hmm. And I've been in situations as an administrator where, I've had to suspend a child for fighting, and the parent says, well, I tell my kid if somebody hits them, they need to, hit them mm-hmm. back and knock them out. And I say, I totally get it. I tell my child, if you're backed into a corner and can't do anything else, you figure out how to get out of that corner.
That's only common sense, right?
But at the same time, schools have rules. And I tell parents, I'm not judging you for how you raise your child, but understand your rules are competing with the school's rules. Mm-hmm. And your child has to figure out at school which rules they're going to follow. And so if they decide that they're only going to follow yours and neglect the school rules, they're going to lose out every time. And you as the parent have to be okay with that, because you're telling them, don't follow those rules, follow my rules. So, it's a delicate dance, it's a balance, but at the end of the day, I just have to tell the parents, here's the behavior, here's what we accept at school, here's what we don't accept at school. If this is not what you're okay with, maybe this school isn't the place for your child. Understand, most schools got the same rules.
Right.
So parents have to then think about what they're telling their children, and again, like I said, I tell my kid, you don't fight unless you absolutely have to. If you can run, run. If you can talk your way out of it, talk your way out of it. But hitting should not be your first recourse. That should be your last. And you're still going to get in trouble at home, because I want to know what led up to you getting into that corner. But, that said, there are rules, and I have to talk to parents about rules and behaviors and make no judgment about the child or the parent.
Oh. Yeah, now, I wish all administrators looked at it like that. But I want to ask you another one. Looking at funding, I heard you saying about let poor schools get, the crappy stuff. Why is it that? Because when I was out here in Oakland, they took welding, auto mechanic, wood shop, all those type of classes out to school. And a lot of my brothers, a lot of my friends, that's how we learned how to work on cars. That's how we learned how to remodel homes. That's how we learned how to go into welding. So a lot of kids who didn't want to go to college, had no desire to go to college, they were able to come out of school and start their own business. And I thought all California schools lost that until I moved out of this area and moved to another area. And when my daughter went to that high school, I know they still had wood shop, all the stuff that we used to have. And out of my son in the same high school, and they still have it. And that was back, my daughter graduated out of high school in 2005, so that was 10 years ago.
Well, they do have some of those programs now back in the schools.
They do?
But they're called pathways. Yeah. It takes a lot of money to fund those programs too. So you have to have a certain type of teacher. I mean, we have those programs still in some of the schools, but it does require the teacher has to not just be an educator, that's been taught and trained through the educational system of teacher credentialing, but they also have to have work experience. So, I can teach kindergarten through 6th grade, but I can't teach auto shop. I have no experience. So I need a person that's had that type of work experience and can teach in a classroom. So those types of teachers are not the easiest to find. But once you do find them, then you can bring those teachers into your school and bring them into certain types of programs. But we are bringing pathways back into school so kids can now be college and or career ready.
That's great. That's great. That's really great. So I got another question I want to ask you. How is it that, because I know with me being a coach, it's very draining to deal with these kids and still keep my sanity so how do you deal at the, especially at high school, you have what? How many classes a teacher doing? Because if you're an English teacher, you have a bunch of classes all day long, correct?
5 to
So
6.
you got to deal with that. How do a teacher keep their sanity? I hear a lot of teachers on Facebook, I need a drink. Oh, I need a drink. I had a long day. How do they?
It just depends on who you are and what you do outside of school. So it's really about work-life balance.
Work-life balance.
If you are somebody that, teaches all day and then brings all your work home and you don't have another outlet,
you get lost.
You get burnt out.
You get lost in it.
So, we try to encourage teachers to have some balance, and we try to do, things for teachers to alleviate some of the stress of school, because not only do they have to deal with kids, but they have to deal with a lot of paperwork and, whatnot. So as an administrator, I would try to help my staff and stay, balanced as best as they could.
Okay. Now, with the pay, you get a lot of people, because I know a lot of programs where teachers can work in a certain school district for like a low-income school district and they pay off their student loans. Is that program still available?
No.
It's not no more?
No.
Okay, but it used to be, correct?
So there used to be teacher forgiveness programs where if you taught in a Title I school or school district, you would get your loans forgiven. Now what they have, and I'm not the most up to date, but when I was teaching, they had what was called an Apple grant, and you could get $2,000 taken off every year from your loans if you worked in a Title I school or school district. If you were math or science, you got an extra bump, and if you were special ed, you got an extra bump. The sad thing is there's nothing for administrators, and you have to have more education to become an administrator. So teachers still benefit from, discounts, but administrators don't.
Okay. All right. We got to take another quick break. We'll be right back. Back. I got now switching gears to, I guess you could say, part of like nutrition part. It is known that most African American kids are either iron deficiency, zinc deficiency, and magnesium deficiency, or all three. Now, those three deficiencies target the left hemisphere of the brain. That's all you got to do with logic and reasoning. A lot of our kids that just bouncing off the wall, a lot of it come from being nutrient deficiency, because you got to think, they go to McDonald's, they go here, they go there. When are we going to start looking at that instead of just want to give them Ritalin and put them in to their HD, what is it, what is it, ADHD? Mm-hmm. So when would they, the first thing they do, are they that, and they put them in there, and then they get a school extra money when is that correct? They get a school extra money if they on special ed?
So the special ed program does receive extra funding based on the needs of the students. So you don't just get a pile of money and then you get to do whatever. It's based on the needs of the student. But for kids who are ADHD or ADD, what happens is that the school and or the doctors will suggest using nutrition first before they give you Ritalin or any kind of pill. So we do recognize that nutrition can play a part in it. And so when I was an administrator and when I was a teacher, I had, kids who had been diagnosed. And the first thing the parents did was try a different diet plan for that child before because no parent wants to put their kid on medication, because that medication alters who they are.
Yes, that's a chemical.
And so we do know about nutrition. However, it doesn't work for every single kid. Not every kid that's been diagnosed with ADHD is ADHD, right? But for those kids that are, nutrition is something that's looked into. So it's not like the first thing we do is say, okay, give them a pill. That's the last recourse.
So the pill is the last recourse.
Yes.
Okay. Because I know I had a couple of parents, I coached their children, and they came and asked me about the school wanted them to put their kid on Ritalin and this and that. And they asked me my opinion. I said, that's something I can't give you my opinion on. I can just tell you to research it, because Ritalin is a Schedule 1, I believe, drug that's the same as crack.
Well, let me be clear. The school can't tell a parent to put their child on any kind of medication, because the school does not have a doctor. So schools have, and barely now, nurses, and they don't really participate in that process.
Okay.
So what you have is a psychologist, you have a resource teacher, you have a therapist, a speech therapist, and they can administer tests that draw the conclusion that your child might be ADHD. We then tell that parent, you need to see a doctor. Only a doctor can prescribe, your child can use Ritalin or whatever. Schools do not do that.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know. I thought the school suggested that. So the school sent them to the doctor, and the doctor suggests
the school will suggest that the school will show different patterns of behavior, and we can't say your child is ADHD. What we can say, based on all of these things, your child falls in a range of, blah, blah, blah. My suggestion is maybe take your child to the doctor first and get them tested and see, what happens. But parents can ask the school to test, but we don't test. We give tests and then we determine what they might, have or where they fall on a spectrum of different things. And then they can go and meet with their doctor to talk about the testing that the school has done, and then the doctors can test. But schools cannot administer drugs, nor can they prescribe drugs because they're not doctors.
Right, got you. So, what is your advice to parents out there to help their kids get the maximum out of their school education? What's your advice? How involved they should be?
So, there's two different scenarios. When your child is in elementary school, and just remember, when your kid was in elementary school, you dropped them off at school, you made sure they were there on time, you picked them up, or you figured out how to get them back home. And then when they moved to middle school, you might have still dropped them off, but then, you let them walk home, or you let somebody else pick them up, or whatever. By the time they get to high school, they're taking the bus to school, or you drop them off down the street from school, and a lot of parents can't pick them up or don't pick them up for whatever reason. At elementary, the parents come into the classrooms, they stay there, they come to everything. What I tell high school and middle school parents is the same way you were with those elementary kids, you need to be with high school and middle school. High school, parents and teachers think their kids are grown. They're not grown. They are still kids, and they're kids exposed to the adult world, right? So we need parents to be far more active at the secondary level, which is middle and high school, because your kids are exposed to way more things than they were in elementary school. High school is not the time to release your child. And senior year, parents are like, oh, they're about to be out in the world and grown. Remember, they're about to be out in the world. They're not grown yet, but they're about to be out in the world. When your kid goes to high school, so do you, right? As a parent, your kid goes to these things at high school, you need to be there too, if at all possible. Those meetings that you attended at elementary school because you wanted to see them participate and perform, those same parent meetings exist at high school, and even more so. You need to be a part of the SSC. You need to be a part of the PTA. You need to be a part of any and every program that talks about what the school is doing and be active in it. Do not release your kids to that school and let the school raise your kids.
So y'all heard that, right? All y'all talking about, man, they gotta, you babying. Y'all, everybody heard that. You babying him too much. Let him go out. Let her go out. They gotta go out to the world. So y'all heard from someone that was a teacher, a school administrator, telling you that do not let your kid go out so fast, right? Exactly. You could give them a little room to wiggle, but not, and stay involved, because as a parent, I'm tired of going to back to school nights and I'm not seeing us. We really got to get there. I mean, if you got to call in from work that day, call in. If that job is, if they not that, I guess you could say, caring that you are involved in your child's life, you need to get a new job.
But can I say this? There is a rule in California that parents get 2 hours a month off without penalty from their job to handle schools, and most parents don't know that.
I'm 46 years old. I ain't never heard no shit like that before. Oh, this y'all been calling in using sick days and shit so I can go see my kid. You serious?
Well, so you have to talk to your job, but like if I call in to work tomorrow and say I need to take 2 hours off to go deal with my kid, I can't be penalized through my job. My job can't pressure me into not going. They can't hold it against me. So you need to look up that law and then talk to your HR to see how they manage that. But it is a law.
Well, that's what the whole Rome Life Show is about, bringing awareness and knowledge. And we just brought some. Well, we're about to wrap it up, I want to thank my special guest. She dropped a lot of knowledge, and she gave a great perspective on the current situation in South Carolina, and for us parents to realize that when your kid is in high school, be more involved than you were when they were in elementary. All right? So until next week, peace out. Thank
Bye.
you.